Does God help Christians when they have doubts? Before I even want to start this topic, I want to share that when I implemented the simple methods and strategies in the book, Closer to God, Simple Methods Starting Today, that is when my faith really became rock solid strong. And that is why I wrote the book for others. The idea behind the book is not a what to do. Well, it gives some little to-dos that are very practical and simple, but it's a how do we do it in our busy modern world. How do we find time to pray? Not even to mention how to attempt to pray without ceasing. How do we track our prayers? What can we do when we don't have a clue what to pray for, or we don't feel like praying? The strategies are simple and fun, and they're created for people who are prayer slackers. Yes, like I was. It takes what some calls spiritual disciplines, and it makes them fun, effective, and turns them from dry disciplines to replenishment and soul care. The book is Closer to God, Simple Methods Starting Today, and it can be found through my book links in the video descriptions, in my profiles, or from my blog, gospelLifeLearning.com blog. So we are in the Emotions and the Gospel Life podcast series, and we have discussed managing our anger for good purposes. And in a few weeks, we'll be discussing the other big and often ugly emotions of depression and anxiety. However, I want to pause for a minute for this week's talk to look at the issue of doubt. I originally had not planned this episode, but I felt led to add it in because so many people, both people who are seeking Christ and those who are already Christians, struggle with doubt. Many of the strategies I have been sharing, especially the Christian spiritual strategies, assume that my listeners already have a fairly strong relationship with God through Jesus. But now that I have expanded into YouTube and even a little TikTok, yes, there is a good side of TikTok, like Christian TikTok and theology TikTok hashtags. I'm suddenly having more interactions and online conversations with non-Christians, agnostics, and those with doubt. The often unspoken question I hear is, will God help me if I have doubt? Doubt that He even exists? Doubt that He hears my prayers? Doubt that He actually cares about me as an individual person? Should I even be trying these Christian-based strategies if I have doubts? Well, I don't have an easy response, and I wish I could say, yes, God will help you even if you have doubts. Here is the truth, though. God knows your heart. He knows your heart better than you do. And you know your heart, too. It's just whether you're being honest with yourself or not. God knows if you are authentically seeking Him, and He knows if you are merely testing Him. Now, He may know that better than you know yourself. But in my experience, I've seen that God does indeed help those who have accepted Christ and are authentically seeking His will, but still have doubt about His level of involvement in their lives. In my experience, I have not seen God pull through for those who are testing Him out. And the Bible tells us not to put God to the test. So I say that not as a black and white division of truth, but just some examples of what I've seen in my own walk with the Lord, along with examples and teachings in Scripture and in the lives of friends and family who have shared their experiences with me. I can share some scriptures that back up what I'm saying, that if a person genuinely believes that God provides salvation to us through belief in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, and that person is authentically seeking to walk through life with Christ, and that person still has areas of doubt or perhaps intrusive thoughts of doubt, that God may still be willing to help that person. Remember, one of my favorite verses in Chronicles that I quote often is, "The eyes of the Lord look down upon the earth and search to and fro for those whose hearts are turned towards his, so that he can strongly support them." The Christian walk is a walk of practice of strengthening our faith and lessening doubt. I think that most people know if they are really truly seeking the Lord and his ways, or if they are more apathetic and just testing him, thinking that if he doesn't respond like they wish, then they aren't going to continue seeking him. You know, Moses doubted God, telling God he had chosen the wrong person to speak to Pharaoh and to lead the Jews out of slavery in Egypt. John the Baptist doubted. Do you recall that when John the Baptist, after he was arrested, he sent some of his own disciples to Jesus to ask Jesus, "Are you really the Messiah, the one we've been waiting for, or should we be seeking someone else?" Later, Jesus called John the Baptist one of the greatest men who ever lived. Of course, we know that Peter doubted while he was walking on water, and Jesus still helped him up and back into the boat. Thomas also doubted Jesus had been resurrected, and Jesus gave him more evidence by showing his wounds after he had been resurrected. Even some of the disciples that spent time with Jesus after his resurrection and were present right before his ascension had some doubt. Yes, it's true. Matthew 28:16-17 tells that the 11 remaining disciples went to the mountain in Galilee where Jesus had told them to go. And then verse 7, it says very clearly, when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. We don't get any more information than that. How kind of Matthew not to call out the disciples who doubted. The point is that doubt is a normal part of the Christian walk. Areas of doubt, I should clarify. I still have doubts. I will write more about doubts I have been through with specific stories when my book on emotions is released, hopefully in the early part of 2024. But for now, let's just see that having some doubt does not keep us from receiving help from God, because God knows our hearts. He understands the human condition, emotions, and human cognition. After all, he created us and he came and dwelt among us through Jesus. He understands us. That is why he is so merciful and forgiving, because he knows us. Jude taught that we should have mercy on those who have doubts. That is in Jude 1:22. There are also a number of examples in the Bible where doubt was not met with God's willingness to help. And in these cases, though, if you look at the motivations behind the individuals, you will see that they were clearly actually testing Jesus. Like the religious leaders asked Jesus to give them a sign so that they would believe, and Jesus knew their motivation was to merely test him or to even entrap him, so he did not do any signs or miracles for them. He replied that the only sign he would give them would be the sign of Jonah, and by this he meant similar to how Jonah was in the belly of the big fish for 3 days, Jesus would be in the tomb for 3 days and then would be resurrected. Jesus meant that that is the sign that would be given to prove he was who he said he was. The resurrection was the sign. So to sum it up a bit, will God help if you have doubts? The answer from the Bible is yes, when your heart is genuinely seeking more of him. Probably not if your desire is not pure. It's not about doubt itself, it's where the heart is. There is a difference between having doubt and being very skeptical and merely testing the state of one's unbelief. Belief and doubt are not opposites. Doubt and unbelief are not the same thing. I heard a testimony once of a young man who came to belief in Jesus and came to faith and came out of the New Age movement. And he said he thought he had tried God or sought God before, but God had never revealed himself before. But one night he truly was genuinely seeking God with a commitment to change and follow Jesus as needed. And he said, honestly, I now know that in those prior times, and I can admit, in those prior times, I wasn't truly seeking God with a readiness to accept him and what he would want me to do. So God showed up when his heart was truly ready. Next, you may wonder, well, how do I genuinely seek God even when I have doubts? And so I have a few recommendations for that.
Some practical recommendations, but that is going to be for next time. So next time we will talk about what to do to strengthen your faith when you are going through a season of doubt.